Hi, I'm Connie, and if you call AeroMarine Products asking questions about mold making, I'm probably the person you're going to talk to. Today I'm going to go ahead and show you how to make a mold out of our food-grade silicone. It's really great for making chocolates and candies. It's also got great resistance to urethane casting resins for high production runs. Let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about this specific silicone. The food-grade silicone that we carry has a platinum catalyst. Some really good things about working with a silicone that has a platinum catalyst are that it has a higher temperature resistance and a great library life. Another advantage is that you don't need atmospheric air for it to cure. It can be used in deep section molds, or it's great for potting applications when it's in a higher durometer. The biggest disadvantage to using a platinum-based silicone is that they do have quite a few cure inhibitions. The most common that you'll find are sulfur, which is usually found in clay, latex, other tin-based silicones, and worth mentioning, epoxy. Here we have a seashell. Today we're going to go ahead and use the AeroMarine Products food grade silicone to make a mold so that we can make chocolate seashells. Right here I have some pre-measured clay and some pre-measured foam board pieces. I've got a shell and a glue gun. Let's go ahead and get started making this mold. First thing you want to do is go ahead and lay your clay on the biggest piece of foam board. Because this seashell has detail on both sides, we're going to make a two-part mold. So you go ahead and you center the clay, or the seashell in the clay. You press it down carefully. We already know that this clay doesn't have sulfur in it, but you need to check that before you buy your clay. Before you put these pieces on the sides for the mold, you're going to go ahead and take an X-Acto knife, Sharpie. You're going to make some registration marks. You can always put bolts or something to hold your place for the registration marks. I use the end of a pen most of the time because they're circular and they work well. So now that we're done making our registration marks, I always like to cut a little triangle out of the end. You want to leave about a 1/2 inch of clay between the seashell and the edge, just so that when the silicone cures, there's a decent mold ball. The reason I do this is because even though I have these registration marks, if you're not making something that is as detailed and easy to see as a seashell, say it's symmetrical like a square or something, you'll know which way the mold goes every time. Probably before that, you want to go ahead and make sure that the seashell doesn't have any points where the silicone could seep under it at any point in time. If it does, it's perfectly fine to take another piece of clay and just kind of smash it in there, make it flush with the rest of the clay. You want to make sure that you do this so that your seashell doesn't float to the top of your mold when you're making the first part. Now that we've made sure that the seashell isn't going to float to the top, it's in here well and our clay is shaped, we're going to go ahead and glue these pre-cut pieces of foam board down. Careful not to press into the clay too hard so that you change the shape. Now that your box is in place, you're going to go ahead, if you didn't get the clay perfectly in place, you're going to either add more clay or use your finger to run it up against the edges so that silicone can't get down underneath it. You're just basically closing the gaps between the foam board and the clay. Okay. Now that we have that done, we're going to go ahead and measure and mix our silicone. This specific silicone is a 10-to-1 ratio by weight, so it requires a scale. Something worth mentioning is go ahead and leave your glue gun plugged in so that when you go to pour your silicone, if any of it seeps out from the edges, you can use your glue gun to seal those. I usually use a scale that has a gram option because it's easy to divide grams by 10. I'm going to go ahead and show you that right now. So let's turn our scale on. You can put your container on it and then you want to zero it out. I'm going to go ahead and start measuring the silicone out into this container. This silicone is thinner than a lot of silicones out there, so it's relatively easy to mix and measure. You can see we have 506 grams. You can go ahead and press 0. We have 506 grams. We can divide that by 10. It's okay to estimate it to 50. Zero out your scale. The reason I poured 550 grams of product approximately is because I did the math for the cubic inches inside of this box that needed to be filled, and that's the amount of silicone I came up with it needing. So I'm going to go ahead and set the scale aside and start mixing my silicone. Keep your stir stick on the bottom of the container. Go in circles and figure eights. Stir firmly but not vigorously. Make sure that you scrape the sides. The reason that you do these things is you don't want to mix air bubbles into your mixture, and you want to make sure that you get all of the unmixed silicone off the sides of your container. You want to mix this specific silicone for about 2 minutes. Then you're going to go ahead and look for streaks. If it's a consistent clamshell pink, you can go ahead, spray your mold release in your mold, and pour. If it is not, if it still has streaks in it, mix it for 2 more minutes. Now that I've mixed it for 2 minutes, I like to pour it into a clean container just to make sure that none of the unmixed material ends up in my project. I mixed for about 30 seconds in this new container if there aren't any streaks, just to make sure that anything that came off the sides of that container will get mixed in well. Now that I'm done mixing the silicone, I'm going to go ahead and set it right here. I'm going to move my mold back over and I'm going to spray my mold release. So I'm going to go ahead and spray this mold with this. I happen to know that this doesn't have any kind of ingredient in it that will cause a cure inhibition, but make sure that you check the mold release you're going to use. Now we're going to go ahead and start pouring our silicone. You want to go ahead and pour it slowly into the corner of your mold and let it self-level. What this does is it helps the air bubbles dissipate by themselves. And you don't want to pour it directly onto your part because that in itself could develop an air bubble. Now that we're done pouring, we're going to go ahead and check the sides of the box. Make sure that no silicone is coming through. Since it doesn't look like there is, we're going to go ahead and just look at it, see if it looks like there's a lot of air bubbles. If there are a lot of air bubbles, you can go ahead and drop it. That helps the air bubbles rise to the top and dissipate. If you notice a lot of air bubbles, you might need to do that for about 10 or 15 minutes. Go ahead and keep your glue gun plugged in while you're doing that, so that if something happens when you're dropping it, you can go ahead and glue the box back together. Just do it gently. When you're satisfied with that and it looks like the air bubbles have been dealt with, you can go ahead and walk away and let it cure for 16 to 24 hours. So we just finished pouring the first half of our mold. Luckily for me, I made one beforehand so that we could see what it looks like. You'll notice that it's in foam board that I reused. There's really no reason not to reuse it. You just need to be careful when you cut it so that you can. Another thing worth mentioning is that this platinum cured food grade silicone can be sped up with heat. So what you would do is you'd basically heat up the air around it. So get a space heater or something, or make a hot box. You don't want to use the silicone below 60 degrees Fahrenheit because it may not be warm enough for it to cure. Once it's cured, you can go ahead and cut your mold box apart. If you want to reuse it, just be careful to cut the edges without ruining it. You also want to make sure that you don't cut into the mold while you're using the sharp knife. If you want to reuse your foam board, just try and cut the glue and not the board. You want to try and prevent the slick backing from coming off of it. Otherwise, the silicone will bond to your board. So throw it out once the papers come off like that. Once you get all the sides off, go ahead and start pulling the mold with the clay off the bottom piece of the foam board. You can go ahead and start pulling the bottom off. If you're having a little bit of resistance, go ahead and grab a putty knife. Carefully slide it under there. Just keep it all together. If you see silicone on the bottom, that's not the end of the world. We can cut that off in a moment with an X-Acto knife. So here we go. We have it out of the mold box. Go ahead and pull any excess silicone off that might have gotten around your clay. So now you can take the clay off. You need to be really careful that you leave your shell in place. So maybe hold your thumb on the shell while you're doing this. The reason that you want to hold your hand over the shell while you're pulling your clay off is so that the seal under the shell is not broken. So now you can see that we have our mold. Go ahead and take your X-Acto knife and just trim the flashing off the edges. Actually, in this mold, there isn't really any silicone that would affect the end product, but it just makes the lines cleaner when you're finished. Just go ahead and trim off anything that you think is going to be a hindrance when you go to make the second part of your mold. It's always better to get the little pieces off the sides so that they don't bond to your second part and you have a really hard time getting the two pieces apart. Once you've made sure that all the flash that you want to come off of it is off and most of the clay is out, there's nothing between the shell there's nothing on the shell surface that could cause loss of detail, you can go ahead and start making your next mold box.
To make the second part of our two-part mold, we're going to put the first half of the mold with the shell in it into another mold box that we will make around it. We'll spray that with mold release, and then we'll mix and measure our silicone according to the instructions. If you need clarification on any of this, please rewind the video and rewatch the steps.
This is my finished mold. I'm going to go ahead and take the box off of it, and then we're going to see what it looks like. Once again, cut only the glue. Be careful not to cut the mold. Go ahead and just take the pieces of the foam board off. So now we have it off of our cardboard. We're going to go ahead and maybe squeeze it a little bit, look for where our parting line is, and just basically carefully pull it apart. So now you can see we have a seashell two-part mold. You can go ahead and pop your seashell out. You've got perfect detail. We're going to go ahead and wash this with soap and water, and then we're going to use it to make chocolate seashells.
Now that our mold is done, we're going to find our favorite chocolate, melt it, and pour it into our mold.
Here's your chocolate, Connie.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Jess.
You're welcome.
Go ahead and close it. Just kind of put light pressure on top to make sure they're together. Leave it until the directions on your chocolate say to leave it, then you can demold it.
As you can see, we have a beautiful chocolate seashell. Definitely good enough to eat.
You can check out our pretty seashells here, and we also went ahead and made some chocolate orange slices. You can make your own food grade mold with our AeroMarine food grade silicone.
You can get this product and see other videos at aeromarineproducts.com.